Hi and welcome to another video. I'm Tessa. I'm the shamanic healer on Kesenya's wellness team, and this video might be a little shorter than the other ones because I've got a huge week. I've just been up at sunrise the other day, greeting the sun on a mountain, which meant I was up at, actually I wasn't up at sunrise, I was on top of the mountain at sunrise. I was up at like 3:40. I've just been starting to do in-person sessions again because the COVID restrictions have lifted, so it's all happening. But I wanted to make this little video that I do every 2 weeks and talk about being in alignment. And of course we want to be authentic and in alignment with who we are when we're out in the world. But what I want to talk about in this video is alignment within yourself. So a lot of the time, the pressure and the feeling of restrictions, lack of freedom, or even feeling like we're walking through treacle, we're not getting there, nothing comes easy, usually that comes back to not being in alignment. Of course, there are life events and situations that can create, and things that we are meant to experience that can create this. But if it's something that's in your control, or at least somewhat in your control, and you're not acting and taking steps towards being in full alignment with your values, your wishes, and who you want to be in the world, who you want to show up as every day, what you want to do for yourself, for your well-being, your growth, the steps forward you want to take, the goals you have, what you're here on this planet to do. If we don't do that, we're going to feel like doors are shutting, nothing comes easy, we're not fully aligned. And it comes down to knowing yourself, and as we've talked a lot about in previous videos, showing up. Sometimes, like I did on Saturday, cutting a little bit of sleep because it was important for me to be on top of this mountain at sunrise. Or, eating healthily if that's what we're set out to do, or not touching alcohol if we're, and I'm oversimplifying. I understand I've had issues with alcohol, as I've talked about in other videos. I have been the person who snoozes the alarm clock. I'm talking from experience, not just from my work as a shamanic healer. So there's no judgment if you're struggling with these things, but the answer to freedom, healing, thriving, and feeling in your full power is always working towards being in full alignment with what you want to do, with who you want to be, with what you want to achieve. And as we do that, doors begin to open and things come more easily. So in the spiritual world, we often talk about flowing and going with the flow and being receptive and in our feminine. Doesn't mean that you don't take action, but it means that you operate from the core belief that you want to be in alignment with yourself and with the energies that you want to invite in your life. And then you don't have to fight so hard. You don't have to go out and open all the doors yourself. They're going to naturally open and things will begin to fall into place. I guarantee you, and I've seen this so much in my own life where I've talked in previous videos about, for example, leaving several jobs and giving up, secure income to open up the path I'm on now. And that didn't fully take off until I aligned myself fully with the belief that this is what I'm meant to do and let go of what I was holding on to. So I made space and I aligned myself with this ship that I'm on now, right? And what's important to understand too is that it comes down to knowing yourself and being willing to be wrong and being willing to adjust your sails as you go. So what's valuable to you, what's important to you, and who you are in, let's say, your early 20s is hopefully not going to be the same as in your late 60s. What does that mean? Especially if you're someone in the public eye in one way or another, it means that if you watch a video of yourself from 10 years ago or even 2 years ago, you might be saying things that you then don't agree with. That's not because you were wrong or because, you were, you shouldn't have made that video. It's because you've grown since. So part of being in alignment is constantly checking in with yourself and constantly aligning with who you want to be in that moment. And it doesn't mean we're constantly shifting and changing and saying different things. But I'm going to give you the example of plant-based eating because that's something that I've worked with a lot in my own life. So this is not a video about plant-based eating. We don't need to have a discussion about it. It's just an example. So I got very interested in plant-based eating and veganism back in, when I was about 15 probably. And any time in my life where I have not been eating plant-based, I haven't felt quite in alignment, because my belief is that that's important to me. It doesn't mean I'm judging other people who are not following that path. It means that for me to be in alignment with myself and my beliefs and what I feel is important, what I want to put into the collective, if I'm not meeting that and eating the way I feel facilitate the energy that I want in my life and the energy I want to send out in the world, then I'm butting my head against a wall and I never feel completely free and in alignment. The moment I align myself and live according to my values, I feel freedom and doors open up. Another example is opportunities. So when you're showing up and you really know that you're answering your calling, you're listening to your heart, and you don't have to go out finding your calling. You just have to listen to what you know in the moment and take action steps towards that and keep working towards it and keep calling it in. And as I said, take action, but don't go against the grain. If every door is shutting and your gut's saying no, it's a no. It might be a yes later on, but it's a no. So if we're fighting it, we're not in alignment. It doesn't mean that you're never going to have a challenge or there aren't going to be situations where there is resistance. Of course, resistance can come from many places. It might just be that you have to go through that, you have to push a little harder, or you have to take a step back, make some changes, come back to it. It might be a life lesson, it might be a timing thing. So it comes back to knowing yourself and knowing if you're going against what you truly want and is meant to do, or if it's just not the right time to act, or perhaps you have to learn something else first. So it can get complicated. But at any given point in time, you can take a look at your life and your choices, from how you live your life, to what you work with, to what you eat, to how you show up, to how you serve the world, to how you speak to people, to how you keep your mindset, to how you care for yourself, to how you love yourself. All these areas of your life, you can check in with yourself and ask yourself, am I in full alignment with my values, my hopes, my beliefs, what I want to create in the world? Does it feel right? This is not a mental exercise. This is about mind, body, and spirit. So you may thrive to 99%, but if you have those unfixed, unhealed, unaddressed aspects where you're acting out of alignment with your own beliefs, it's not to say that what you believe is right or wrong, or that if someone's acting and operating in a different way that they're right or wrong. I'm talking about your own inner world. So this is not a conflict with other people. This is you and yourself. And taking a look at if you are showing up every day and meeting who you want to be. And the moment you do that, things feel easy. Opportunities show up. For example, the opportunity of being on this channel was not something I went looking for. Kesenya found me. And, things like that will happen continuously if you're showing up and you're continuously aligning yourself. I also think it's important, a deep realization that I've had along the path is, the need to show up and be who you want to be, to add that to the collective. So sometimes you might feel like, well, me trying to better the world has no point because the world's not going to change overnight, or other people will not, be kinder or plant more trees or whatever it is. But you're sending that vibration out into the collective. So at the very least, you're living in alignment with yourself and you are doing your bit. You're only responsible for yourself. And you're gaining momentum because you're moving towards the destiny you desire. You're creating your reality. You're showing up and doing everything you can to reach your highest potential. So if that's all that we get out of it, and you might touch a few hearts along the way, then I would call that a successful existence. You're going to get to the end of your life and be grateful that you showed up and did everything you could within what was possible for you. There are not going to be any regrets. But I believe there's something much bigger going on, that when we do that, everyone we touch along the way will be inspired. They'll feel the love, they feel your vibration, and on a subconscious level and on a spiritual level, you're also sending that out to the collective energy that we're all constantly tapping into. So this is how trends start, right? Good and bad. When we're continuously putting something into the collective, other people are going to pick up on that subconsciously. And you know how inventions, for example, there'll be two people creating the exact same thing who's had no contact in different parts of the world at the same time, because it's in the collective. Maybe it was a seed from spirit, maybe it was from a human, but a lot of the time this would be before people have told anyone or had contact with anyone. So there was no way anyone could have plagiarized it. It was just that two people had the same idea from the collective or from spirit or wherever it came from, through their higher self at the same time, and they decided to act on it. So all that information is always available to everyone who's open and paying attention. So we are responsible for our thoughts, we are responsible for what we're putting into the collective, and every single thing you do does matter. You know, and sometimes when you're trying to be a better person, or you're trying to be, you know, to show up or make better choices, it may feel like there's no point, because you'll, for example, be very mindful about recycling, but as you take a walk, there's rubbish everywhere. So you may feel like your small effort as one person doesn't matter, but it does. And even look at how, I like to make the example of, for example, natural products and health products, for example. You know, in the last 5 years, there's been a huge shift of what's available in, for example, supermarkets. So even brands that are not necessarily environmentally friendly, you know, packaged in sustainable materials or not tested on animals, they are beginning to move towards it because that's what people want. So they may not be as ethical as the green, you know, companies that's always been, you know, creating these products at big effort. But through that, the ideas have reached even mainstream companies that perhaps had no interest or felt no responsibility to be sustainable or, you know, to fix their carbon footprint or whatever it is. So as a collective, we are consciously and consistently, sorry, not consciously necessarily, but consistently aligning and sending out this information. And every purchase we make has an effect. Every time you send out a thought, you know, it does affect the collective. So we have to become incredibly self-aware. And if we want to heal the world, we have to start with ourselves. This is why healing is so important. There's no point trying to heal the world when we're broken and when we're not doing our bit to better ourselves. We don't have to be perfect, but we have to show up. So being in alignment, as I said, now I went on a bit of a tangent to explain how I feel and what I've come to realize about how important it is from the collective perspective. But this video is really about your inner world and the feeling of peace and harmony that you can truly experience when you're living in alignment with your values. So it takes raw honesty to ask yourself, where am I not in alignment? And what's the cost of that for myself? And what would shift if I made some sacrifices or made some shifts, got up a little earlier, or whatever it is you've been struggling with? And this is where, you know, instant gratification is the issue, right? Because it's so hard to reap rewards when it's delayed gratification. But the more you do this in little ways, the more amazing life gets, and the more aligned with spirit and with your own spirit you feel, and the more messages you'll receive, and the more harmony you'll feel. And as time goes on, you may shift and change. You may be very passionate about something and then realize that you didn't have all the information or you were wrong. And, you know, I was listening to, for example, a doctor the other day who works a lot with food and what she's, you know, helping clients, patients to change their, I think it was blood sugar issues. I can't remember now, it was a while back I listened, but let's say it was blood sugar issues. So of course, most things that happens in our body is going to be affected by food. So taking a look at if they're eating processed foods or, you know, what they're eating is important. But that's not how she was trained. So she was trained to prescribe medication. So for years she did that. And then one day she realized through her own lifestyle changes that what she did had a huge effect on her health. And she thought, wow, I never ask my patients what they eat. What if there's a correlation? So this was years ago. And she did, and she realized that many of her patients did not need medication when they made some lifestyle changes in various ways. Some of them still did, some of them needed it for a little bit of a time. But she said, she could then look back and say, wow, for 20 years, I just subscribed medication to people who perhaps didn't need to be on medication. So she could look back and say, wow, that is so out of alignment with what I now know and how I want to be as a doctor and what I want to do. But there's no point doing that, because through that journey, she learned and she evolved, and now she knows better. And that's going to be a lifelong journey. So there's always going to be things that you have to change and be open to understand, that you're wrong, for example, or that you've outgrown, or that it's not in alignment anymore. Another example is my university degree. I did a bachelor in psychology, and I went on to do postgrad in counseling, and I gave it up for the spiritual path because I got to a point where I realized that I didn't want to be a psychologist, I didn't want to be a counselor, and I was now just finishing a degree for the point of having a piece of paper or putting it on the wall. It was already paid for. I was had done quite a bit of studying for this postgrad by the time I decided that, wow, this is not what I want to do anymore. And I quit, and then I got cold feet, and I thought, you know what, I should finish it. So I came back and I said, okay, can I just, shorten it, remove these subjects, change to these subjects and whatever. And I went back and I straight away felt like, no, this is not what I'm meant to do. So now I don't second guess myself, but that came through experience. So sometimes being in alignment means giving up something that you thought, or that you thought was what you wanted, or that you invested time, energy, and money towards. Now, sure, I could have finished this degree, taken a couple of more years to do it, had a sense of completion around it, but would it have brought me joy? No, because it wasn't in alignment anymore. Does that mean I made the wrong choice starting that course? No, at the time it was great, but there was a lot of years in between. This was self-paced, the postgrad, so there was a lot of other things that shifted, and I got to the point where I realized this is not what I want. That was personal choice. Having completed that degree would not have stopped me from becoming a shamanic healer, but it would have taken a couple of years of time that I wanted to spend doing something else. But to make decisions like that, you have to be able to hear your true self and be, able to look through your shadow, because you don't want to quit because you're just getting a bit lazy, or it got a little bit difficult, or, your self-worth is telling you shouldn't, or whatever. So quitting is a wonderful thing if it's in alignment, but to be in alignment, you have to be able to understand really, really deeply what's going on with yourself. So the 5 things I wrote down that are important in terms of, checking in if you're in full alignment was, the first thing I wrote was, you have to listen to you, because it's not about comparison. It's not about right or wrong, as I said. It's not about what other people are doing, or what other people think you should be doing, or what other people think you should not be doing. You can never live a life in alignment if you're doing it because someone else thinks you should. And there are a lot of shoulds for a lot of people, If you're a woman, for example, who might have, I'm going to make an example, who chooses not to have children, you might have colleagues asking you, when are you going to have kids? And if you say, I don't really want to have children, they might say, you'll change your mind. And you might get to age 45 and they might still be saying it, or then they might start saying, well, don't you regret not having children? So you have to develop thick skin and to heal and become very confident in knowing what you want and what's in alignment with you and what isn't. But that also requires us to be open enough to change our minds. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind. It means you evolved. It means you learned something. It means you're willing to be authentic, even if it comes at a cost where, like me, I quit the fully paid degree. So, and that takes guts sometimes. It takes guts, but Can you imagine a life where you never learned anything, you never made a mistake, you never changed, you just knew from age 10 everything you needed to know in life, and then you just stuck with that for another 90 years? Like, what would be the point? So, and especially on a spiritual path, the amount of shifts and changes and growth and expansion you're going to have, you know, you're not going to be the same person 10 years or even 1 year later, especially when you begin to go deep. The shifts are extensive and intense and fast. So we have to embrace change. We have to embrace that aligning yourself does not mean being stagnant. It means opening up to having that flow of energy guiding you in the stream of energy that you want to be in. And that's going to turn and shift and change, or it would be very, very boring. The other thing I wrote down is to heal the shadow and to understand. I've talked about the shadow before, because if you're acting out of fear of judgment, fear of doing the wrong thing, fear of getting it wrong, fear of starting, fear of failing, you know, you're always going to be stagnant. It's never going to be the answer. And if this is a struggle for you, shadow work, inner healing, and facing fears is the only way through that. The third thing I wrote down was show up for yourself, and don't beat yourself up if you fail, quote unquote, but show up for yourself. The longer I'm on this path, the more I realize that all the juicy goodness is there when you really show up without expectations, and when you're continuously doing it, continuously giving of yourself in various ways, and you receive so much. But it's not necessarily the same day or the same year. It's an ongoing, you know, I've probably talked about this before, but in the Peruvian shamanism, in Inca shamanism, or in Peru, they talk about Aini, sacred reciprocity, which is you give, you receive, and we give first. So you may, for example, to give you a very practical example, when I started doing tarot readings, I did about 200 free readings before I took any paying clients. And, you know, now that I'm a shamanic healer, you could say, well, that wasn't really needed because you don't work that much with tarot anymore, although I work some with it. But at the time, that was fantastic. And I started working with tarot. I created courses. I loved it. Every single step along your journey is wonderful. And it was in alignment at the time. And then things shift and you grow. That's the whole point. The fourth thing, what did I write down as the fourth thing? Retire the stories of I can't. If your first answer is I can't because I can't, I'm not a native English speaker, so I tend to say I can't sometimes and I can't sometimes. But the moment you say you can't, you know, you've shut that door. You've told yourself it's not possible, and, you know, it's so important to change those stories and to find solutions, to be a pioneer, to be someone, a trailblazer in your own life. And everything I'm saying in this video is about the inner world. I don't care what other people are doing or how far ahead in their lane they are. There's no competition. Your job is to go deep within yourself and align yourself 100% with your highest purpose and who you want to be in this life. And you're not going to have all the answers day one. You're not going to have all the answers day, 1001 either, because you're evolving. It's like the universe. If the universe is continuously expanding, it might make a better planet. It might make a bigger planet. It might make a smaller planet. The energy is continuously changing and moving, and that's how we have to be as well. And the fifth thing I wrote was stick with it, because I think a lot of the issues is we give up too easily because we don't see results right away. So if you're not seeing results for a long time when you're trying to create some kind of change, either you're not in alignment, you're trying to make something happen that deep down in your gut, it's not the right time or not the right choice or whatever it is. Or it's not quite the right time yet. And if you're not sure what's the difference is, you have to get to know yourself better. So I hope this has been a helpful video, helping you understand more about alignment. And to me, it all comes back to peace, harmony, living at the best life, creating the best world, and thriving. You know, back when I did my psychology degree, I remember that one of the things we were told, and you know, this was a long time ago, I graduated almost 15 years ago, so it's been some time, it might have changed. I'm hoping what they teach has shifted in that time, because you know, even sciences evolve all the time, of course. So we were told that the human condition is to be somewhat unhappy. And I thought, okay, that makes sense. Most people are happy, but there are a few things we're not happy about. Now, as a shamanic healer, I think that is the worst advice you could possibly give someone. Why would we come to this planet to be somewhat unhappy? And if we believe that, how can we thrive? It's crazy. It is the most crazy thing I've ever heard. And I don't believe it at all. I think we are here to thrive and feel amazing. It doesn't mean that there aren't challenges or that every day is just roses, but it means that we have evolved and healed to the point where we're thriving from within, just going about our day. We're just feeling happy or joyful or grateful. We're having those big, beautiful feelings going over us. And sometimes there's a wave of anxiety, or sometimes there's a wave of anger or sadness, or, you know, passion and drive towards something or whatever. They're washing over us like waves, but we're able to come back to that feeling of thriving. And, you know, no one can tell me that that's not the truth, because I know it is. I've experienced it in the shifts I've made myself. I've seen it in clients. I believe we're here to thrive. And I think when we tune into our spiritual self and understanding that there's a lot more going on than the physical reality and our bodies and this realm, we can get there. But alignment starts with looking inside and making small changes. Make changes you can stick with, one thing at a time. Don't do too much at the same time, because then you're probably gonna, you know, want to quit. So, but most importantly, check in with yourself. Do you love going to your job? If not, what would make you happy? What job would, sorry, make you happy is the wrong way of saying it, because we have to be happy from the inside. But what job, or, you know, if you don't know the specific job, what sort of environment or feelings would you like to have when you wake up in the morning? You know, are you loving yourself enough? If not, that's a good place to start. You know, there are so many aspects to this, but it comes back to asking yourself, is this in alignment or no? And you'll know, because if it is, it'll make you feel good. It'll make you feel in the flow. Things will naturally evolve. You don't have to push and strive so much, and you'll feel at peace. You'll feel a deep sense of peace, that there is no rush, because you've showed up, you've done what you can, you're in alignment, and what's meant for you is going to come your way at the right time. And I truly believe that. And I know it's true, because I've seen it, I'm living it, and I'm every day striving towards keeping that equilibrium. And you can too. So much love to you. Thank you for watching. It ended up being, actually, I thought this was going to be a short video, but it isn't. So that's good, because I know some of you said you want an hour video, maybe one day. But I hope you have a beautiful couple of weeks, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.